Right. Okay. 11 in my list. Well, okay, if the others might join in a little later, we will start. Alright. If you're not able to hear me, or if there's a connection drop in the audio, please put in a message in the chat window. Alright, this is what I planned for our demo session. I'm going to give you an overview of the OBIEE 11G architecture, and I'm going to walk you through a simple exercise of creating a analysis. That's what I planned for today. So, moving on with it. Give you an introduction to OBIEE before I start with the architecture. Everyone's background over here, but I just assume that everyone is at a normal level. Everyone is trying to learn OBIEE 11G, so I'll take it at that level and then we'll move on further. If you have some specific doubts, you can ask me your questions in time. Good. Right, so OBIEE, it's a collection of tools, development tools, analytical solutions that test, deploy, and you also would use it to administer your that you deployed at your client's place. The origins for 11G, as on today what we call it as the OBIEE 11G, the origins have come from something called as Cyber Analytics. Been working on this since the Cyber Analytics days. Later Cyber Analytics was acquired by Oracle, and then we had something called as OBIEE 10G, and the latest release is 11. Moving on from 10G to 11G, there's a lot of differences in terms of the architecture, in terms of your development process, even in terms of your deployment and migration process. A lot of things differ. The security model completely differs OBIEE 11G. So the main features with respect to 10G have a major architecture revamp. You'll notice that the OBIEE 11G is more integrated into the Fusion middleware now, and it's got some enhanced reporting abilities. It's got some enhanced security model. So we'll take a look at this as we proceed. Right. So this is the main important it's good to know the architecture so that when we actually work with components, we can get a clear idea in terms of when we do something, we're trying to do behind the scene in terms of which problem some component has got shut down, or some component has crashed. Then you know exactly how these components work together to actually give you an analytical solution. So take a good look at this, the picture, the slide, and ask me your doubts on this. Right. So the overall picture of the component or the OBIEE deployment is what we call as an Oracle BI domain. By default, when you install it, you'll have something called as a BI foundation _ domain. That's what it's being called by default when you do an installation. So that's the main unit that or the overall unit that we consider in terms of whether you're going to deploy it on a single server or whether you're going to deploy it on a clustered scale. So we're going to talk about that single deployment as in terms of an Oracle BI domain. Going from there are two major components. One is the Java components and the non-Java components. Or the Java components is what we also call as the WebLogic domain. I don't know if anyone of you work with WebLogic server, then you'll be aware of it. Since, like I mentioned in OBIEE 11G, it's tightly integrated into the Fusion middleware. So from 11G you have something called as the WebLogic domain. In WebLogic domain, you would have two major components. One is your admin server, the administration server. The other one is the map. Is what you would actually normally log into something called as a WebLogic console and manage the components of the administration service. The managed server, again, Java component. Okay? That's responsible for these components. You have the BI Office integration, you have the real-time decisions, you have BI Publisher, you have plugin, you have the security model, you have the SOA. So these are different components which are kind of there for this. So the it again is like it's been deployed as a JE container. You say JE container, it runs on the WebLogic server. Again, the managed server, again, that also runs in a dedicated Java virtual machine. So if you notice that right now in my laptop, I have a window that is opened over here. I have a command prompt window which I've actually started. Making use of. I started the OBIEE services over here. So you have a command prompt window. This is actually a Java command prompt window which dumps up all the screen messages. And also something as the OPM and over here, which I have started the process, which I have not spoken yet. Sorry for the spelling mistake. Okay, let's all start it up. And then yeah, so we have these components which are like, you see, basically, the point is, what I wanted to stress is that it runs in a dedicated Java virtual machine. So that's about the managed server. Now, you also have important system components, and these system components, what we call it as a BI instance. In a simple deployment that on a simple installation or a deployment that I've done on my laptop, or what you would do on your having a single instance, which is normally known as instance 1 and instance 2, depending on how you cluster your. So the system components, they are crucial to most of the admin managed in mentioned like BI or the real-time decisions, BI plugin or the part. And actually, usually manage this as a developer, you would do this as an administrator of the how to kind of, if server or the very important part is the component that kind of hosts your catalogs, your dashboards, your analysis, or these kind of the reporting part, and that is handled by the BI presentation server. Then, like, you also have the BI server, which is responsible for your repository. You have the scheduler, which you can actually schedule to deliver analysis. And is this someone? Oh, I thought there was someone trying to communicate. All right. Yeah. So you would have the then you would have the cluster controller and the Java host. By default, even if you do not really have a physical cluster deployment, you do still have a cluster control component, which is there. So these components, which you see BI, scheduler, presenter, the presentation server, the Java host, and the cluster controller, they are in turn being managed by the Oracle Process Manager. So this is exactly what I've actually shown you over here. When I actually look at the OPMN status over here on the command process window, you see you have these 5 components listed over here. You have the cluster controller, you have the scheduler, you have the Java host, you have the presentation server, and then you have the BI server connections over here. You see this thing, and right now the status is all components are live. So you use the OPMN to manage these components. You can also, in this case now, I've actually issued a start all command where all the 5 components. You could also individually start and stop each and every component by using the IS component name over here. You could do that. You'll probably do this more often if you deploy it on Linux systems. On Windows systems, you have life made a little easier for you, though it may not work every time. If you go to your programs and if you go to Oracle Business Intelligence, and then you have the Start BI Services option over here, which kind of automatically starts up everything for you. When I say everything, it means the admin server, the managed server, the OPMN, the node manager in terms of the Windows. Windows is installed as a Windows service. In Linux, you'll need to kind of start it up yourself. So this was the 2 main things about the non-Java component. That's the system components, which we call as a BI instance, and the Java component, which we call as the GUI, which for managing the project domain. That's why on Windows system it's easy for you to, in the terms of that they provide it as a Windows service. The other novels 1, 2, 3, 4. This illustrate or the indicate in which you manually start your services. Like I said, do it the Windows way is you go to your business intelligence and then you have the start options over here. In case of that looks like a very kind of easy way to install, but you'll notice that the moment you try to deploy when you try to deploy an RP using the Enterprise Manager, then you need to restart the services, and many times it happens that you can restart the services using the Enterprise Manager front end, and restart the services using the Enterprise Manager and stop very clean way front end and have components down, some components up. So in that case, the ideal thing to do is to kind of have this practice of starting and stopping services manually. It's better components which start there. Sometimes this service may not. That's what the 2 major components, and then below that you also have some supporting components. Mainly these deal with your. I'm not sure if I heard that. Was that a question from me? Was that a question? Yeah, anyone has a question on this? Because See, let's make this a little more interactive because I'm just getting a feeling that I'm the only one who's kind of continuously talking up. I think you just switch on your mics very well and good, and just let's have an interactive session on this. Yeah, please everyone, just on your mics and you just freely speak in. You can stop me wherever you want and just ask me some questions, or we could have some discussions on that. But let's try and make it a little interactive. All right, so I was talking about the configuration files. Now, the supporting components, in fact. So the supporting components, they would include your configuration files, your RTD or your repository, which I'll show you how to create that today. And you have the catalog files, and then you also you have the security, the identity management components. Identity management components is like you have in 11G you have an inbuilt WebLogic LDAP server. Though you could also create, you could also connect to third-party LDAP services, which is very well possible. But then that's more on the administration training sites, which I won't do over here. So then you have the configuration files, you have the database configuration files, you have your diagnostic log files. We'll take a look at the diagnostic log files as far as a developer is concerned. Very, very important to go through the log files and to go to, you need to know which specific log files can I make use of if certain things go wrong. So these are things that we'll do during this development training. And above all this, you have two major important supporting schemas to run your OBIEE system. And those two important schemas are and the BI platform schema. They are very, very important schemas because I don't know if anyone has tried installing OBIEE at your place or got access to your server, you will notice that one of the first things that you would do is run the repository creation utility, which kind of then will create these two schemas for you. And it's only then that you start installing the OBIEE, actual OBIEE software. So basically these are the components of the OBIEE architecture. And if you want to start the services now, normally what you do is you start the node manager, you would start after this you would start the admin server, then the managed server, and finally your OPM. So that's the sequence indicated in the green circles with the numbers to start the services. And the other way around, if you want to stop the services now, you just follow the numbers in the reverse order. So you stop the OPNN services first, then the managed server, then the admin server, and the node managed server, node manager. So we'll do this thing in detail when we do the actual training. In fact, I'll always, my way of working is that I normally take control of your machines. I kind of check what you guys are doing, and then like I do, sometimes I even do the demo, part of the demo on the trainee's machine. So when you actually do the training, it will be more like more on a hands-on session kind of thing. So that was about the OBIEE architecture. The remaining slides actually would describe in detail the kind of whatever I have said, like for example, the Java components. You see this direct towards the Java component. So let's it just puts it up in a little more detail about those components for your reference. Right. So the way you access the admin server is by this URL, the WebLogic Administration Console. The host name, the port is by default 7001 unless you have done a manual configuration of the port. Unless you have done that, it's the default one is 7001. /console gives you the administration console. /en gives you the enterprise manager. We'll see later during the training what is the importance of the console, what is the importance of the enterprise manager, and then what is the importance of the analytics page. Because these are three major things that you're going to access using your browser. So how these three things kind of come together to work together, and what do these three things do individually? You see that thing during the actual training. Right, and that was about just explaining this. Again, like the system components, over here, the BI scheduler server, put in now more information for your reference. Right. Now, I said the BI server is basically going to take control of your repository. Okay. Then the presentation server is going to take care of your catalog and analysis. The scheduler, like I said, you can schedule analysis to be delivered to a user at specific times. So then you could use this component as the one that is responsible for scheduling activities. Okay. And then you have the Java host. This is going to provide the component services, which is actually going to kind of more like kind of work internally between your presentation services components, your BI publisher. You also have something called as the map integrator. So the Java host is actually more going to work in between or integrating these components. And then you have obviously the cluster component. Okay. The Oracle OBIEE, if you again, if I go back here, the fourth part of it, here, the OBIEE. The OBIEE is it's more like a process management tool, which I said it's going to manage those 5 components. Right? Now, you know that it's got a command line interface. I've shown that to you over here. This is the command line interface. The moment I say OBIEE status, I'll be able to get the status of all my components that have been managed by the OBIEE. Get status over here, it's take down or not initialized. So you can do an automatic restart for that. If you want responsive, you can start them component wise, and all that is possible. Right? So the demonstration for I've already started the components over here. You can actually give you the demonstration right now. I won't be giving you an actual demonstration. What I can do is how to start it, if at all you're interested in starting at your place. You need to start it first by starting the WebLogic domain, and then the OBIEE is how you're probably going to deploy the components. Okay, so I'll just go back to my architecture slide, and I'll just tell you about this. See, what happens is when you install OBIEE, you have 3 options in that. One is you do a simple install, then you do an enterprise install, or you do a software only install. Now, if you do a simple install, like what I've done on my laptop, it's a good idea to do such kind of things on your laptop or some kind of demo systems that you just want to try out a few things, but not on a production server. So, or rather, even not on a development server also. So, in a simple install, what happens is that you do not have a separate admin server and you do not have a separate managed server. Well, you just have an admin server, okay, or you just have one component of it. Right. The idea is that why we do it, why we give this option of simple install is that you see the memory that is required to kind of run both these components. In a typical case, what I've observed over the years is that if you have like 4 GB of RAM and you do enterprise install where you have the admin server as well as the managed server. It works fine seamlessly initially. You leave it running for about 4 or 5 days, and then you see that how the memory is being eaten up. So definitely, the point that I'm trying to stress is that when you do an enterprise installation, you have individual components of the WebLogic domain. That you have a separate admin server, you have a separate managed server, and they consume separate memory spaces, a lot of memory spaces. When you do a simple install, okay, the functionality for the admin server and managed server is being merged or is being clubbed into one logical memory space, where you definitely have then lesser memory requirements. So that is one advantage of doing a simple install on smaller systems like a 2 GB laptop or a 4 GB laptop or something like that. So for that purposes, it works out perfectly fine. In that particular place, now if you actually install it in a simple install mode, in that case, when you're actually starting the service, now for example, now I said you need to start the node manager first, then you need to start the admin server, and then you need to start the managed server. But then, if you're doing a simple install, and if you do not have a separate admin server and you do not have a separate managed server, in that case, you just simply start the admin server, which is as good as saying start weblogic. You have a script file which says start weblogic.cmd, and that's good enough to start your WebLogic domain. When you're doing an enterprise install, now remember that the admin server is completely different in a different memory space, managed server completely different memory space, completely different components. In that case, then you will need to kind of separate them, or start them and stop them separately. So that's one thing about the starting these services. So if you notice this over here, on my laptop I have done a simple install. Okay, and so I've just got one window, one command prompt window, which says start weblogic.cmd. Right now, let's see if this was done. Let's say on if this was done on, let's say, an enterprise deployment, then you will have something like this. I'll just try to connect to my production server and just show you. Yeah, I'm just trying to connect to my production server. Just show you that. Fortunately, it's a little slow to connect to my production server. So, nevertheless, I'll just try to show you how it looks. Okay, it's just coming up. Alright, so I hope you can see my screen now, everyone. And alright guys, I'm not sure if you're able to see the screen. I've just connected to my production server, and it's not really production, it's my development server. And you see, here also, here this is done, oh no, You're not able to see my screen? Sorry.
No, yes, now yes.
Okay, but I think, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're able to see my screen. Okay. Right. See, right now what I've done is I've connected to one of my development servers, and if you notice that, like you notice on my desktop, I have just one single a prompt window, a message window that is opening up, because that was done in a simple install mode. On my development server, I've done it in an enterprise install mode, and so you have two windows, one for the admin server, one for the managed server. All right, but then obviously it requires more memory over here because they are in two different logical memory spaces. In my laptop over here, I've done a simple install, and that's why I have just one window which says start web.cmd. One for the admin server. That's all. Right? So I just wanted to show you that how it kind of stuff. So there you are. So that was the thing about it, and then you have the OPM. So basically, okay. So basically, that's the thing about the BI services, about starting and stopping it. When we actually do the training, you will start and stop this by yourself, and I'll make sure that you know it. And if you have a problem, I'll kind of I'll kind of take control of your machine, and then we will make sure that things will work fine. So usually this is what the way I normally conduct the trainings. So no issues on that. When I actually do it, it should be fine. Right. So now I want to give you since you are all going to be on development teams, so I'm going to give you an overview of how this OBIEE development take place. How do we actually develop an OBIEE system? Right. So I'll give you an overview on this, and then as we as we progress with the training, each and every part of the steps will be very clear to you when you actually get to do things by yourself, and I'll monitor them for you, and then we'll take it up like that. Right. Okay. Now to give you an overview of this, see what happens is, just to have a little background on this, remember that when we develop using OBIEE, what we're developing is an OLAP system, an online analytical processing system. When this might be a little different for a lot of you if you're coming from the Oracle apps background or Java programming background or any other background other than the BI background, because all this while you would be developing something called the OLTP systems, or the online transaction processing systems. So when you move from OLTP to OLAP, there's a lot of paradigm shifts over here. There are a lot of concepts that needs to be first made kind of clear, and once those are clear, then then developing on OBIEE is then there's nothing but a breeze. It's just easy sail through that. So the idea is just to get that shift in the paradigm between from OLTP to OLEP clear. Then things will be much more easier to understand. All right. Okay. Okay. I just looked in the chat window and I said, all right. I had a question from Vijay, and it says, "What's an RPD?" Okay. Vijay, I'll answer that question with this particular slide. I'll answer that question. Oh yeah. Right. So I'm going to explain this from, if you're facing the screen, from right to left. So firstly, you have something called as your data warehouse. You have data inside this database, which is in the form of, which is more on in terms of the OLAP model and not on the OLTP model. I don't know if anyone knows the difference, or anyone can, do you know the difference between the OLTP model and the OLAP model? Anyone? Come on guys, we can just make it a little interesting. You can tell me what you know, and then we can pick it up from there. Anyone? Okay, actually, since usually before I do the training, we do an introduction and we get to know each one's background. But in this case, since it was a demo session, so I completely skipped it off to save time. So I have literally no idea what you guys have done and what is your background. So I'm just assuming that everyone is new to everything. So just bear with me. Some of you are already on OBIEE development, and this might seem a little simple to you. But for the others who actually starting it, it might be very important to you. So we'll take it from scratch itself, I think. Yeah. Right. So the first component that you see is the data warehouse. What happens typically? I'll tell you what happens exactly. Is that you have an online transaction processing system. Let's say Oracle apps for finance or supply chain management, or you have some data that is there in CSV format, or you have some data that is in XML format, or you have some data that is in plain text format. The idea is you have a lot of data that is lying around in systems, different heterogeneous systems, different heterogeneous databases. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull the data from these different systems, different databases, different data sources, and we are going to kind of put them into our data warehouse. Now I made it quite simple by just saying that we're going to pull the data and just put it into the warehouse, but there's a lot of things that play in between the statement. I'm saying I'm pulling the data from your sources, and these sources are normally plain text sources, CSV files, OLTP databases. We're pulling the data and putting it into a data warehouse. There's a lot of things that happens in between. One of the things that happens is something called as an ETL, extract, transform, load. You must have definitely heard of this thing when you talk about analytics. Definitely there's a big part of ETL in this. So let's say, for simplicity purpose and to avoid getting into ETL, because that is a completely different topic from training, and that's like in my team, which we have the current project, we're doing a financial analytics for a client in Denmark. So we have a separate ETL team with us for this. I have a separate ETL team with me. I have a separate team, a developer team, which does take care of only repository. I have a development team which takes care of only about the catalogs. I also have one person working only on the localization part, because then obviously we need to translate it to in terms of Danish. So currently I have just one person working on the localization part. So in a typical scenario, just to give you an idea, in a typical scenario, how your BI development team is structured. Right now we're doing the training only for OBIEE, so we're only going to focus mainly about OBIEE. But in an actual scenario, you have a team of ETL developers or ETL admins who take care of all this processing from where the data has to be fetched up and how the data enters the data warehouse. Once the data enters the warehouse, that's where the OBIEE developers come in there. So you have the data that is there in your data warehouse in something called as there's something called as a star schema, snowflake schema. We will do this thing more in detail in the actual training, because without this we will not be able to do anything much. The fundamentals of dimensional modeling. So we won't take it up right now over here. Right now I'll explain to you this, and then I'll give you a demo on the actual thing, which will make it more interesting. So yeah. Any questions, anyone so far?
What is the
Alright, so what we
ETL
are
tool
going to do is,
used in OBIEE?
let's say we have the data, we have the no, I'm sorry, who is that? Sorry, could you repeat that? And because the window was closed.
Okay, this
Yeah,
is
could you repeat
Vijay.
that, please? Your voice is little echoing. Could you just type your question into the chat window?
Yeah, I just typed it.
I think no, not able to hear that.
No, what is the ETL tool used in OBIEE? Is it Informatica?
Okay. You're saying what is the ETL tools you used in OBI? Is that
Yes, correct.
yeah?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. See, the ETL tool, you have a choice of ETL tools, right? So now, if you take by default, what is given to you as an included package is the Oracle Warehouse Builder. You could use that as ETL tool. But commercially, what we've been using, what I've been using, in fact, in my current project, is also something called as Informatica. So you have Informatica, which is more commercially used, especially when we talk about large-scale projects. Though you could use Oracle Warehouse Builder, we use that for a couple of mid-sized to small volumes of data. And then we use that over there also. So what has been bundled with OBIEE is the Oracle Warehouse Builder. What has been bundled with something called as Oracle BI Apps, which is our scope of right now. This thing, this BI Apps is intelligence, business intelligence solution that's can develop by Oracle for especially putting or building analytics on top of the Oracle ERP system. So that's something called BI Apps. So if you're using BI Apps, what they use is right now what they're using is Informatica over there. You have a lot of Informatica ETL mappings that is available. And going on further on this topic, if you, in the next release, I believe, from what, to whatever knowledge that I have right now, is that you have the Oracle Data Integrator as the ETL tool of choice. So currently what is widely being used is definitely Informatica right now. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, he's correct.
Any other questions? Yeah, okay. Right, so getting back now on this thing. So finally, let's say assume everything is gone working fine and your ETL team has been able to extract the data, you have the data model available in your warehouse. Now, you need to start building your analytics from the warehouse. So the first thing that we do is if your data warehouse is using the Oracle database, then you use the OCI connection, because you know that if I have some system admins or the DBAs in my training session now, you understand the advantages of using OCI connection if it's got to do with if you're connecting to the Oracle database. Or you use the ODBC connection through the relevant drivers to whatever, if it's a MySQL, if it's a SQL server, your warehouse is on SQL server, perfectly fine, then you use ODBC connection. So using this connections, you connect to the data warehouse and you can import the relevant tables. Those are necessary to create your analytics, I would say your model, your data, your analytics model. So this is the first step that you would do to create something called as the RPD, or RPD is something called as your repository. What is a repository? It's nothing but it's something that contains your analytics model. It contains your data model in terms of the star schema or the snowflake schema, and it contains a lot of business logic that is embedded. It contains a lot of what do you say, values that you want to give to the user for reporting purposes. You will categorize them, put them into something called as subject areas. Okay, so it contains a lot of information about all these things in itself, and that's what we call as a repository. And that's exactly what you would actually deploy when you're actually going to deploy your analytics. One of the main components that you deploy is your repository, and then if you're obviously going to migrate, then you're going to migrate your catalog. Right. So, in terms of your repository, there are three major layers of your repository: your physical layer, your business model mapping layer, and lastly your presentation layer. Now, the physical layer, it will contain some connection pools. It will contain references to your data sources, like you will have flat files or XML files, Microsoft Excel files, different database connections. So all these things will be there in your physical layer. In your BMM layer, your business model mapping layer, this is where you would define your star schema, your snowflake schema, your business models. If you want to add additional measures, if you want to kind of create logical facts, if you want to create hierarchies, if you want to create aggregation, if you want to kind of improve your performance by using aggregate tables. So these are things that you would actually do in the model mapping. Right. So okay. Now the final layer is your presentation layer. Now this is going to present the customized. It's going to be customized. It's going to be secure, and more importantly, you will see that when we talk about security models, we're going to talk about role-based views of your business model. See, the thing is, you define your So you able to hear me? Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Fine. Guys. Okay. I'll just proceed. Okay. Yeah. And anyone has any doubt, you can ask me. Hari, Martin, Sri, Venkat, Vijay. Anyone, anytime you can stop me and you can ask me your doubts.
So for the presentation layer, right? What kind of reports you can develop? Is it inbuilt-in tools or how it is done?
Yeah, you could develop, Vijay, you could develop dashboards. You could develop simple tabular reports. You could develop reports using pivot tables, and you could also embed maps inside. It's a lot of things you could actually do. Kind of, and I think you have an entire session of just focusing only on report development. So a lot of things. Like you can put in those gauges, all those fancy kind of charts, all those things you can actually do. In fact, the example that you see over here, you have like pivot view and along with the chart. So these are things that you could actually do in terms of I'll just try to see if I have I'll just try to see if I have yeah. Just try to see. Those reports, and mainly these reports typically, if I have to give you a practical scenario of saying how do we actually go and develop a report, normally you would get the report requirements from the client. From there you get an idea of what kind of analytics he or she is interested in, and you can actually use that as a starting point, and then you will definitely have a lot of you in your team will have people who are actually, you know, only report developers. Okay? You will have a lot of input from them to how to actually proceed with your.
So just I have another question.
Just try to show you.
Just I have another question.
Yes, yes, of course. Go ahead.
So did you work with EBS? Oracle applications? ERP? Yes.
The EBS, no. The more on the analytics side.
Okay.
I know EBS to the sense that because I source my data from the EBS. So
okay.
That's
I have a question.
View. Okay.
So if you take Oracle EBS,
an example like during the
they had a BI called the Discoverer. There were so many reports, 3 different reports for Oracle applications.
No, I have not. Okay. Okay.
So
Oracle. See, Vijay, if you See, Vijay, if you're actually talking about that, that is something called as Oracle BI applications, which are pre-configured analytics meant for the Oracle EBS systems. So in there you have a lot of those predefined reports. Now if I just take a look at this, see, there's something called as a sample thing that is there on your screen right now. I hope you can see this thing. Just to give you a taste of, see, this is one of the dashboards that has been developed. By default, when you install the Oracle thing, I can't connect to my production server because I'm not able to share the data with you. To give you an idea in terms of, you know, this is a dashboard thing which is there in front of you. So your question, Vijay, you have predefined reports very well, but that's in BI applications, and we are not doing BI applications right now. We're doing the base of it, something called as OBIEE, where you actually build something called as BI apps. BI apps, now what Oracle has done is it has built the repository for you. What we are going to do is we are going to build our repository from scratch.
Okay. So this experience required for it to do using EBS?
No, sorry. You need specific requirements.
So to have ETL, everything will be defined by Oracle, right? You need to deploy all the things.
Okay.
So mostly all the customization. Is that true?
Vijay, your voice is a little echoing, so I'm not really able to mention something. You're saying something about the ETL side. That's what I was going.
Yeah, ETL presentation layer and on the middle layer, everything will be. Is it predefined in EBS, and if you want to customize it, how to do it.
Okay. Okay. See, in term, no, are we talking about BI apps now? Is that question
Yes,
related to BI apps?
Yes, sir.
Because I think that's your question that you asked is more relevant to BI apps. Because BI apps, what happens is, see, if I just go back to my slide, okay, see BI apps, I hope you can see my screen. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I hope so.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
BI apps, what you see the presentation layer, PNM layer, physical layer, all these things are already built for you. Okay, and even the data warehouse is already built for you. You have to just, of course, install and configure the ETL run using the DAC. So all these things are already. And now, in that particular case, you need to configure which subject area you're interested in. For example, Oracle BI for financial analytics. Then I can use this. I can select the subject areas like I think you have. I'm not very very well versed with EBS. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You can you have subject areas like you have the GL, AP, AR. I think those three main subject areas. So you can then pick up those subject areas and run your ETL only for those, and then you have predefined reports for GL, general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, these kind of things. So those repository, everything, presentation layer, BMM layer, physical layer, everything is been predefined, but you need to configure it. You need to configure it to, for example, the physical layer. What configuration would you do? Then you need to actually configure your database connection to your data warehouse. Maybe you need to configure some session variables. Maybe you need to configure some repository variables to suit it in the context of your deployment. You may very well need to probably want to add a few functionalities, or we want to kind of change a few functionality. You need to do that in the BMM layer then. Likewise, in the presentation layer, if you want to kind of put in a security model, you want to kind of limit certain rows, certain fields to certain users, you will need to do that in the presentation layer. So these things can be kind of modified in the Oracle BI applications. Now, again, to get this thing very clear, we are not doing Oracle BI applications. We are doing Oracle OBIEE, the core development, development software, which was used to develop the BI apps. So BI apps is something that is predefined, developed by Oracle, and you only need to kind of deploy it and configure and contextualize it. But you can also, for example, you want a very simple, similar functionality compared to BI apps. You can very well, if you know your source data, you can very well create a repository from scratch. Connect to your EBS, okay, from scratch. But then before that, you need to define some ETL routine so that you can get the relevant data in your data warehouse. Once that has been done, you can very well use Oracle Warehouse Builder over there, perfectly fine. Depending on what you would want to do, kind of thing, and the kind of volume of data that is there, you could use Oracle Warehouse Builder. Once you have a thing in the data warehouse, then you can define your own repository, your own reports, and very well take it up from there. So that's the typical scenario how you would actually work with it. Right. Is everyone clear on that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So that was about the presentation layer, and so from basically the presentation layer is from where you actually want to get those reports that I just fancy reports that I just showed you. So I think I'll just give you a demo now. Too much of talking, so I'll do something concrete now. So okay, let's try to the report. You have something called as the BI administration tool. So you open up your BI administration tool, and let's try to create a new repository. To create a new repository, we'll deploy it. Hopefully, we should be able to finish it. laptop is a little bit slow. And yeah, should be okay. Visualize. This is what it is. Okay. So anyone has got OBIEE installed on your system? I can very well do the demo on your system. And just kind of create it and I can quickly show it to you on your system because I already have it on mine. Anyone? Okay, I'm just taking a look at the chat window because it kind of gets minimized. Okay. I'm not sure when let's give an example like student and department. Venkat, I'm not sure in what context was that. Give an example like student and department. Let's see if my admin tool is open. Yeah, okay. Can you see my admin tool open now? Okay. So you can you have the OBIEE administration tool. Okay, and we have the new repository, file new repository. You click on file new repository, there you are. Okay. I'll just I'll give an example like sales sample demo. All right. Okay. I'll give it a password for this. ADMI23. I'll always follow this. If you're trying to build something, if you're trying to work around, try something new, just give it the default, as a standard practice. Given the default password, which is always admin123 with a capital A, D, M, I, N, 123. So that should be the thing. Notice the default repository passwords, they also kind of come in. So I'll select OCI over here, except that I'm not, I should be XP. Should be sample, I'm not sure on the password, I need to check it. Sample. If not, then I'll need to check. My services are on. Just want to check. Yep. Looks like there's something problem. Just check with this. So check with this because I'm using a different laptop today. I'll check. Yeah, it should be okay. Let's see. Okay, fine. Good. That's the problem. No. Yes, sample like this. Okay, I think we can use this because I can use this. You never log in as sys, so yeah, but just to illustrate this. Get to. Okay, I'm still having problem. Okay, this seems to be okay. Yes. Okay. It's okay. Fine. Do one thing. One thing is LG instances for BI home network. Then just a path over there. You come across these problems and we'll take care of it. Okay. So if this doesn't, then I'll need to shut it down and work it up. Okay. Right. SQL. Repository. Demo. Technology. Data sourcing. Speed. Like I said, you normally have the schema password. You would not log in as sys. Oh, again. Let's see what the problem. Let me just see if I have code installed. Let's just hang on. Okay. Okay. All right. I'll just. A little hazy away. Oh, there's no BI sample. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll just show you a demonstration on my machine over here. Okay. I hope everyone's able to see my screen over here. So then I have okay. Guys, you can see this screen. The only thing is I don't have a sample schema on my laptop, and so that's why I'm not able to connect. So I'll show you something over here.